Hello, and welcome to today's session. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Hope Gagodo, backend and DevOps Engineer, and today I'll be your speaker for the session on dark launching feature toggles to enhance product management and product delivery. Thank you. Now, I would start by looking at the dark launching feature toggles or feature flags interchangeably, because feature toggles or feature flags are used to enable features to enhance product delivery and also take feedback from clients to enhance and improve their products. Now, when we talk about dark launch, what do we mean by dark launch? Now, dark launch, as the word means dark, always refers to the aspect of what we don't see or a hidden part of the product delivery cycle when the product is in market or before the product gets to market. And the feature toggles part, which I would be using feature flags as well, refers to aspects of the code base or the products in the market that is able to switch or adapt to a user behavior or based on what the user opting to see during their interference with the product. So it's a toggle that can be turned on and off to make that feature available to a particular user base or a customer base for other purposes, maybe for feedback or to gather data or improve upon the product. So let's look at the definition of all this in real terms. So now dark launch itself is a term that refers to releasing features to a subset of users and seeing how these features act accordingly. And whereas the feature flag refers to really to control the life cycle of the product, as I said earlier on, these are used to manage the life cycle of components or each section of the product. And there are benefits to doing that. And also it helps validate the product ideas when new features are released or new features are updated. Yeah. Now, this is how it works to improve the product. Now, in a simple terms, it takes the risk out of software releases with feature flags. So maybe you can release a product to the market and the product just, for whatever reason, doesn't function well, and it might affect your user base. So it takes those risks out of your delivery cycle. Yeah. Now let's look at the typical flow and how this fits into that process. So now this is how a typical flow looks like with dark launch and feature flags. So there's the concept phase where you do the requirement gathering with the product managers and the scrum masters, and there's the design phase where the design or screen is implemented for the concept, wireframes and mockups. And there's a build phase where you move those designs, and then the PM puts the user stories up on the board, and the developers pick those stories to work on. And then the control release. This is when the product is built and pushed, and then based on some test criteria, it is released, or a release is versioned. And there is a production where the code is put to be made live to the public. Now, that is when the feature flags comes into play. Now, you realize there's the part that they toggle the feature on, which makes the feature available to testers, engineers, or developers. Now, they test that feature over and over again, and then you realize the feature is turned off for 100% of users. Now, this product is, mind you, is production, which means it is live and generally available to the public. But then you realize the feature that is actually being pushed is not interactive for other users, but then is there for other people like the testers or the developers to actually go through that feature very well before it is released. Yeah, so that's where the dark launch, that is where it comes into play, not at the beginning or at the concept phase, but it's part of the release cycle for production. Next, we'll be looking at why dark launches. Now, why should you even go in for dark launches in the first place? Is it really necessary or important? Yeah, you might argue out yes and no, because then I can release my feature because the product manager is there, and they work on the user stories and everything. and breaks down the stories into features to be released based on their research from the market and other requirement gathering. So why should I like introduce these feature flags or dark launch? Okay, one is for real-world testing and performance assessment. Of course, you introduce these feature flags or implement the dark launch to be able to get a performance feedback on how the app is actually working on the market, or how the product is actually working on the market, and how it would handle realistic queries, because then you would want to just open an app for maybe the whole of your country, and then you realize that the app is not responding well, and it affects your user base, because should you even release a new version that works well, it might not get the same traction as a well-worked out code that is there on the market. So it helps you, cut off those uncertainties. And then the risk that it would affect your users. So that's the reduced risk and user impact. So we are not going to use a product like it impacts your product reputation on the market, because your product is you. And if your product doesn't speak well to other users on the market, then that affects you as well. And so implementing dark launches, it's going to help you reduce this headaches and overcome those hurdles to hit the market. As you can see, from a feature being worked on, and you realize that the feature was released and they forgot to actually use a feature flag to actually make that feature available, and it was released to the public. And when the user started interaction with the app couldn't respond well, and so it just went into a pitfall. So it's very necessary to implement dark launch or feature tables or feature flags. Other aspect is for feedback collection. You are implementing your dark launch with surveys and inner feedback mechanisms. It might be appealing, and for others, a particular feature might not be appealing, and you might not know how the app is working with your users. So if you implement these feature toggles in your application life cycle, it helps you monitor the data that you expect data, because then it gives users are actually connecting with your app. It also doing the app, and on the first day of release, you get about 1,000 people jumping on that. There might be latency issues, there might be other bottlenecks that would make the app perform poorly over realistic load. But if you release it gradually based on feature flags and so on, it helps you get realistic load and know that, oh, okay, should we hit this number? We are not sure this app can be able to actually have pressure. And it helps you inform or give you an informed decision ahead of time. If like today you're going to test in production is actually where the actually is the world, and that is where everyone is going to jump on it. And so if you are not using feature flags and you are going to just run the test in production directly, it would affect you. I mean, trust me. Yeah, it does most of the time. And so even if we look at our market, that is how products are released. Take WhatsApp, take any app, take any financial app, take any social media app. They implement feature flags, they release to a subset, and we can go on and go on. And at the end of this session, we will look at real world life examples of feature flags or feature tables or dark launches in real time. Now, how? So how does that launch work? Or how does feature? You realize that it involves a feature being developed, and you actually enable the feature by turning it on or turning it off. And it helps you control most part of your features, because a feature might be obsolete or might not be working with a particular user base, or you might want to open it to a general public, or you want to do a gradual rollout. 10% of users should start using it. Let me get my feedback. Let me roll out to 20% of users. And these are not just any features off, but also controlling of how people get onto the product in the market. Yeah, and even the variations of how users interact with various sections of the app. Now, the feature flag, as you know, is to add a code with a flag using the dark launch tool that will be deployed to a very section of the app. And also it's based on what you toggle, it actually informs the app what should be shown to users. That's when, and then also launching and collect. Now, when you talk about the feature flag, you are going to get real data based on how that feature is being interacted with. That collects feedback from what being interacted with. There's like Motomo or mixed panel, which also helps you collect this data. But then those two don't work with feature platform, don't is performance or getting user feedback or interaction from the app to improve how people are actually interacting with your app. But that actually helps you track data from the app itself, as well as the feature that is also on the market. Yeah. Now, when should you use that launch? Probably you've been used to developing with your team as a product manager. The stories are there, and you don't really think it's very necessary to actually put in that launch. So when do you think you can use it? Probably you've already written your code out there, it's working. And do you think it's really necessary? I would say yes, it's really necessary. Now, if you have that, that launch or feature toggles as part of your product management delivery cycle, because it helps you get back on new and specific feature. It improves your A/B testing, and it also gives you user insights. Now, user insights, I've already mentioned tools that do it separately, like Motomo or Mixpanel, but that launch adds it to the feature that is also being not just collecting data on users' insights. And then also it helps you with to test your product for that technical performance issues, because there are also caveats when you're using that launch. And so this also helps you test the technical performance of your product as well. And so a great tool, I think that if you're a product manager, you implement and deploy that launch of feature tables within your product delivery cycle, it would help you improve your products with maximum, and also help the quantum of what work you are actually going to do, that maybe you have to go through. Now let's have a look at some of the benefits of dark launches. So these are a few benefits if you implement that launch, or if it's added to your tool. We have the user engagement and activity, or system reliability, adoption rates. It helps to see how fast people are adopting to your product. Error rate and bugs. It helps you cater for when there are errors on terms of a feature. Customer support queries, analytics and feature usage. That's getting metrics or metrics conversion on how that the market, or just take it off. So it helps the overall monitoring of each section of the app that is performing based on the features that. Why you shouldn't, why shouldn't if it's important to use it with all the great stuff that dark launch of features or add to your tools, why shouldn't you use it? Of course, I'm having something that can control or help me control features, like go to WhatsApp and ask Snapchat, or ask any financial app, any media app, any marketing app there. Why shouldn't they use that much? Now we can see there's the technical and then the non-technical aspect of why you shouldn't use it. Now on the technical side, even though that launch is easier to execute, there are still definitely headaches that comes with the existing code base. Because of course you've implemented a feature, but you're saying, should this feature be available or not? And you're going to grab that feature with a feature flag to toggle it as to whether it should be on or it should be off. And that's an additional code base, and adds up to the technicality of what you're implementing. And then there's a non-technical aspect, the feature toggles, or how users are interacting with the feature. You are, let's say, there's a data team that's going to analyze know how the feedback comes and other stuff. And if not correctly or not properly structured, it would be jumbled up. You just have a raw data that you might not be able to, or might be misleading to what actually you are expecting. And all this can actually hinder the implementation of your app performance, because the implementing features toggles that language because you want to improve your product performance. And if all these things are there, then it's actually going to hinder the performance as well. There are privacy issues and security issues as well. And if you're implementing additional code base adding, there's also the resource aspect, because then people will take more, the developers will need more time to implement the additional code base on top of the existing feature. And also you need more resource allocation, because as the code base grows to cater for certain things and speed, the latency of the app or the response time might be, so you need to increase those things as well. So as well as the technical blockhead that builds up the code base, there are also the non-technical part as well that might hinder how you implement your feature toggles. So limited user feedback is one, performance impact is another, and in implementation, as I said earlier on, there's a data segregation issues. How you structure the feedback that the feature is a big issue that you'll be facing as well. And there are the security issues as well, because a feature that you didn't enable well and might cause data leakage and other stuff. And as you can see, you're trying to set the right value for a feature, and you have to wrap your head around, because you're dealing with a huge user base. You don't want all the features to just go out there and hit them in the face. When you not set those values right for those feature flags, you are going to get a jumbled up data or even hinder the performance of your app, because the right data will not be getting to the users you are targeting, and that would affect you. And then there's an aspect of flag for your refactoring feature flag, and that's really confusing. Someone from the audience would like to ask, make it make sense. We created a feature. When there's an issue, we need a product. Typical example is what is being said over there. Feature flag that was implemented. Just me explaining that point. Why it is bad. Now there's a feature implemented, and then a feature flag was being set to toggle that feature on and off for user base. And now what happened is that feature flag now is having an issue. And then because of that issue, a new feature flag is now being implemented around that feature flag having the issue. And so you end up recreating more garbage or even more jam or even more issues than expected, because it's not been the flag everyone has forgotten. Now, there was a flag that has been implemented, but then the developer who actually forgot to flag or to document that feature flag, and because of that feature flag not being documented, it's not affecting, because now no one knows, because you are deep down way inside the product code base, and you don't even know there is a feature and the app is in the market facing hitchbacks and roadblocks, and the person forgot to even add it as part of the document that there is a feature that is added, that is doing this thing, or that is performing this function, this user base. And for all it might be open to the whole public, not a section of the users, which is really bad and can affect your user base or can affect your product as a whole. And then there's the limited user feedback. There's also regulatory and compliance concern. Also, there's difficulties in measuring impacts when the configuration is not set well. There's resource allocation, and then difficulty in rollback challenges. Now let's look at you have your code base there, very good and straightforward to what it's supposed to do. Now, as I said earlier on, when you start using feature flags, you add additional code base to your existing code, because you have a clean code, it goes straight to the point, and everyone knows what the feature is doing. And now you start introducing feature flags. You realize these traffics like turn this on, turn this one off, let this one go on, let this one keep running for these people, let this one stop for these particular users, let this feature be available, let users be able to have the ability to turn or to actually enable the feature themselves. And you realize it's as up to the code base. Most of you might have come across once in a while, you're using an app and there's a button or a screen that says opt in for version 2 or use this feature. There's this new feature. Would you like to try it out? When you turn that on, you're actually toggling a feature. And you realize sometimes they tell you there might be issues with issue. Find that issue, kindly turn it off. That's an example of a feature flag, which you, the user, you are opting it in, not the product or the company that released the product for you. This is user-centric. You opt it in yourself, and you decide how to turn it off, whether to turn it off or not. And you might turn it on, and you want to turn it off, and you might have issues. You know, some of these are roadblocks because if I have such an experience, and even if the thing has been worked on, I might not even want to go back and use it again because I had a bad experience using that feature. You know, features are sometimes forgotten. You know, as I said, it's also very difficult for product managers to prioritize these things, like introducing features. So some of drawbacks or flags of dark launches. And you know, as you can see, the developer says, let's just add a feature flag for this. And you know, your manager says, no, we don't need a feature flag for this. It will add a technical debt. Yes, why technical debt? Because you already have a code base and there might be bugs already. And if you're saying let's introduce a feature flag, maybe around the bug, that's maybe to be able to just turn it on and off. Yeah, leaving it over. It adds up a technical debt. I think that could be before you even try. Maybe it's just a straightforward feature that should be added. Product manager doesn't see that to be a priority of adding a feature flag to it. It might cause a technical debt. No, it's, you know, blocks that can affect implementation of it nonetheless. All right. So thank you very much. To the end of this session series for feature flags or dark issues for product managers, you know, to conclude, dark launches can be to meaningfully test and evaluate features with reduced risk and reduced costs. They are best suited for evaluating and validating product ideas implemented. There's also the risk of what can cost you, yeah, as well. Thank you, and I would in the comment section, yeah. And whilst we wait for the comment section, I would just give you a reality of what this does with a tool called Unleash. It's an open source. I'll just see how now this is an example of a tool for, you know, dark launches or adding features to your product. And this is just a little particularity of how it's done. So you will create a new feature here, this nice of feature iPhone feature for specifically iPhone users. And I'll just make it and create, and then I can enable impression data to get feedback from how a lot of user feedbacks and interactions. two modes to either add it, enable it for development and production. So now this is where the critical aspect comes in, because then you have to then enable it for development, because you don't have to push to production yet, and you can add strategies to it. You have variety of how they should actually conduct dark launch. Dark launch, first of all, thank you for the question. Dark launch is not something you should say frequently conduct, but it has to be part of the team discussion. Whether it should or would it be very necessary to add this tool to our development stack. Now, if it's very necessary, how do we actually prioritize which features we should toggle? Because it might not, because of the technical debt it can incur, you wouldn't want to just jam up your whole code base with a lot of features. And so it's not how often or how frequent, but then it has to be a team discussion and specific features which you think you should add to your feature toggles or should be enabled by feature toggles. That's how I think product managers should approach it. And based on the stories that are on the board, and that's how they should approach it. And in terms of release, their product releases. So in terms of their product releases, that is how they should approach it, because you can't build all your products around feature flags. So you might prioritize the stories or the features that you think would be necessary to go under feature flags or feature toggles. Thank you. Can dark launch be used or combined with your methodologies example, TDD, that's test-driven development approach? This is looking at it from a technical perspective. Okay, so one, dark launch doesn't take away your TDD approach, no, because as a developer, you increase the value of your code base by adding unit tests and integration tests. That's how you increase the value of your code base from not breaking. Now, dark launch only helps you control after your TDD development and the product is on the market. That dark launch only helps, to actually perform a rollout based on either features or based on user base, by not clustering the features to maybe the whole public, because you want to get feedback. And so you don't stop TDD because you are implementing dark launch. TDD is still there. You need to implement TDD, but then this is to help the product managers also be able to align with the development team on how the features should be rolled out. Thank you. Greetings, Bentu, from abroad. Bentu, welcome and thank you. Any more questions? Okay, dark launch is not mostly, technically when you because during your TDD development, you would have to factor. Definitely, you'd have to factor, because I personally have this passion around dark launch and feature toggles, because in TDD, you have to implement your tests and everything, integration and unit tests. Now, when dark launches of feature toggles are also introduced within your code base, your TDD has to also cover for that as well. And I believe the tools that you're configuration tools that you're going to be using to actually enable these features should also allow you to test those features as well, as much as the toggles are there, you understand, because then the configuration management tool you are using actually is configuring, sending your configuration as it's like a configuration as a service, and that is being read by your code base. And when you're doing your TDD, there should be the mocking. If you mock the data, there should be that aspect that also tests that feature toggles of the feature flag as well. Else, you may not be covering the whole code base within your TDD. And so it's even though you would say we can argue it's mostly used for feature release, it's also something that should be integrated into your code base as well, because we are looking at product managers helping to deliver value based on the feature that they are releasing to the market. So it doesn't take away the technicality aspect of TDD development, and also they also factoring in when this feature is on, this should be the outcome. When this feature is off, this should be the outcome. Yeah, thank you. Where Jake and Douglas. Yeah, I'm based in Accra, Ghana. Yeah. Welcome, Shakdaha Saki. Jake and Douglas. Jake and Douglas, where are you also based? Oh, from Germany. Welcome, welcome. Berlin. Wow. Greetings to everyone in Berlin. Which can speak a German. Is it Guten, or Danke? Yeah. Guten Tag, Guten Tag. Any more questions? All right. If there are no more questions, how can someone connect? Okay. There is my LinkedIn profile. We can connect on LinkedIn. There's my LinkedIn profile. Yes, I'm on LinkedIn. I'm on LinkedIn. Okay. Okay. I'll share my LinkedIn profile. Okay. So that's my LinkedIn profile there. Maybe so this link there. Yeah. So any of the links can get in touch with me. Thank you. All right, thank you very much, and see you guys in the next session. And goodbye.